Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from SCaLE 16X, the show that puts you, the listener, in the driver's seat because you are the content. The phone lines are open to be a part of the program. It's a free call. 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624. Hey, give me a call. We'll have a conversation about your tech questions or business and tech questions. Linux advocate, above all else, small business owner, now host of the only radio show centered around you, the listener. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show. My name is Noah Chalias. So good afternoon. We are live from the Southern California Linux Expo. Joining me again this hour is owner and operator of Jupiter Broadcasting, Mr. Chris Fisher. Hey, Chris, welcome back to the program.
Hey, buddy. Thank you for having me here.
Are you happy to be here?
Very. This has been a good one.
It's been fun, and it's been really great to get a sense of the vibe that's going on here, walking around, meeting with people.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear to people that are listening to the show. I have had a number of you come up to me and say, yeah, I heard you were doing that live episode from here, there, or wherever, and I didn't want to call in because I was afraid that I was going to be interrupting something. And that's not the case. The listener drives the show. And that means that phone calls come first on this show. So if you give me a call at 1-855-450-NOAH, that's 1-855-450-6624. Of course, our email, live@asknoahshow.com. You can become a part of the program even while we're here at SCaLE. If that wasn't the case, we'd just pre-record it and we wouldn't do it live. So you guys are the content. We'd love to take your calls. Now, we have some really exceptional audio coming up for you later in the program. We had a chance to meet up with a lot of industry leaders, and we've been working our butts off trying to really dig into the personalities that have made this conference great. We've had an incredible reception, and it's been really great to meet and hang out with all of you that have been here for lunch or been here for dinner or just sat around and had drinks with us. Today is the second to last day of the event, and I would say it's definitely the biggest, and I think we've really gathered some fantastic audio, and so that's coming up later in the program. Nathan Haynes is going to join us from the Ubuntu, the Loco here in California. You're also going to hear from Ted Gould, who is one of the founders of Inkscape. And I have to tell you, when I spoke with Ted and with Nathan, I can't help but start to geek out with these people because these people are fundamentally responsible for making some of the software that I use on a daily basis. And so to be able to sit down with them and ask them their motivation and talk to them about their opinions and dedication to Linux and hear their very encouraging and exciting answers, that's been probably the best part. But I want to go back and talk briefly about something we talked about last week. We got a call from a lady, and she was asking how she could get content to her phone, music content, her library.
Yeah.
And we came up with a couple different solutions. None of them were really ideal. And afterwards, as the audience typically does, I had people writing into me, and they were saying, no, you got to tell her about Tonito. You got to talk about Tonito. Tonito is the answer to what she's doing. I have that same problem, and I use Tonito. Tonito, and I'd not heard of Tonito. And frankly, the first couple people that wrote in, I looked at what Tonito was. I went to Tonito's website at tonito.com, and it said it's a private file access syncing service for home or business. Well, the truth is, if it's a self-hosted thing, I'd rather be using C-File, and if it's not a self-hosted thing, I'd rather be using Dropbox. And so I was a little bit put off. But after so many people had written into the program, including our very own Jason Plum, who has been on the program a couple of times, I knew I had to take it a little bit more seriously. And after looking into it, the Tonito server actually allows you to not only access all of your files from the computer or a web browser, but the mobile app allows you to do things like DLNA. And so it actually is optimized for media, both inside of the LAN and when you're outside of the home.
So if it's doing DNLA, that means you could get it on your console that's hooked up to your nice stereo system and things like that.
Yeah, because it's supporting a standard. But of course, that's only going to work on the LAN.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
So, so I've not had we got a lot of these messages as I was on my way out here to SCaLE, and so I haven't had a chance to play with this, and dig into it as deep as I'd like to.
So it's on your list.
It is on my list. I think what I'm going to do is actually on the plane ride home, I've actually been playing with virtual machines.
Okay.
Invert Manager.
Yeah,
so I'm thinking I'm going to spin up my own Tonito server.
That's amazing.
On the airplane.
In a VM. On your laptop.
And then I'm going to set up a little LAN and then stream that content over to my phone.
Sure.
On the ride home.
You could.
Yeah. Well, that seems like the most logical way to
That's a good way to spend a few hours, yeah.
Right, exactly. I got a 4 hour. for our plane ride. 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. So I guess my question to you is, as you're walking around, what are you seeing? What's the vibe that you get? Because you have a very interesting perspective. Because I feel like I can sometimes get subjected to echo chamber because I'm here and I'm around the same people so much. And you very strategically pick which conferences you're going to go to, and there's other variables involved, but I think you have a fresher perspective. So give it to me.
Yeah, I did take a year off.
Yeah, so you're walking in here, and you have a fresh perspective. What does it feel like to you?
Well, it's funny. We definitely differ on a couple of the observations immediately. To me, it feels bigger. It feels higher energy. And I've been here since day one, so I've watched it ramp up when it was sort of a quiet, more focused. People are here because they want to learn a very specific thing. They're likely in the industry. And as we've gotten to the weekend, and now here we are towards the end of Saturday, what I found is a whole other couple of sets of groups of people sort of work their way into the mix really seamlessly. And so you've got people that are here to make money on Linux and use it at work. But what I found even more surprising is there is some California drive-bys, is what I'm calling them.
Okay.
There are California drive-by users who haven't committed to a Linux yet. They're curious about Fedora. They're curious about Ubuntu. They're curious about the different distros and projects. They're curious about, is it actually possible to use Linux in my workplace? And they're sort of just doing a drive-by. They see this event going on, and they're coming in. I wouldn't think that even is a thing that happens. I mean, this is a Linux event.
Yeah.
Why would randos want to come in here and check this out? But randos are coming in and learning about Linux.
That's particularly true when you don't have a recognizable name, right? When you don't have the Microsofts or the Apples, or the Googles.
It's not the iPhone convention.
No, it's not. And it appeals to a very specific user set.
You think so, but there's people in here that are here to learn. I mean, there's definitely, I'd say the second big group that's really ramped up over the weekend is your casual homebrews. I have a home server. I've got a couple of workstations. I love using it, but it's not my bread and butter. Those people have trickled in on the weekend too. So it's not just randos. But yeah, I was really surprised.
I'll tell you one thing I noticed right off the bat, and you had mentioned it before I got here, but then I really started to notice it more and more, is there's a lot of people that are recognizing the content that we're producing here at Jupiter Broadcasting, the people that are recognizing us individually, recognizing the shows.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Even some people, it's really kind of comical, but you can tell people want to create a connection. They're like, I listened to that show, and then they may not know exactly the words, or they may not know the exact, the person or the voice or whatever. They're like, I recognize you guys. You guys are doing a great job.
You got to say a few lines, and then once they hear the voice, you're like, oh.
Yeah, you're that guy that does that thing.
That is a funny thing, and I definitely wouldn't have brought it up if you had said anything, because it sounds braggadocious a little bit. But that's
really?
Don't you think?
I don't know.
It's kind of like saying, I really feel like a rock star this year.
I guess where I was going with it is that we've been so well received here. Everybody from Larry to Elon to the people that are around are happy that Jupiter Broadcasting is the only media outlet that is producing. I mean, there's people here writing and stuff.
Right, but we're the only online media, like video or audio platform that's here covering
and
it.
I definitely think we're the only one doing a live show.
Yeah.
And so I think, and I brought this up in an interview before I turned your audio on so you couldn't argue with me, but I think that is a unique perspective and a unique thing that Jupiter Broadcasting has done, and something that isn't, because you don't call it outright, and I think sometimes people don't acknowledge that. And I think that's something unique, and I think it's a cool branding thing, and I also think it's something that largely appeals to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I think one of the reasons I probably don't talk about it a lot is because some people just aren't interested in these events a lot because they haven't been here.
Yeah.
And so the struggle that I have had this year is, how can I communicate why this is important to me? Why do I come down here, move my home down here for a week, and literally live down here? Because there is such a deper connection when you come to these events.
Absolutely.
And I can't ever describe it in a way that makes sense. Maybe if I was a writer, I could.
Sure.
But the best way I could describe it is you go from a two-dimensional understanding of a project or a person you interact with to a full three-dimensional understanding. Like it's like going from 2D space to 3D space.
Yeah.
It's a whole new plane of understanding.
Because you're creating those emotional connections with other human beings, not just you're that username on that mailing list.
And I think the other thing that is super easy to slip into is the world that we primarily work in day to day is technical. So things are ones and zeros. It's really one or a zero. And humans don't work like that. Humans operate in the gray area, and they actually need context to interact with each other.
Sure.
And they need to have a more primal kind of connection than just, I need this thing from this individual provides thing, I'm compensating individual, or whatever it might be, the arrangement. We think that's enough because it's transactional, it's 1 and 0, and that's the world we live in.
Right.
But the reality is, if you actually want to get more effective, if you want to get deeper into projects, if you want to get more involved in open source, if you want to be part of a project that you really like and respect and excited about, you got to go 3D. You can't stay at that 2-dimensional level because it will just fundamentally inhibit how deep you can go. And what I would try to do when we go to these events is try to pull out as much of that as we can to provide it to people that are listening that can't go, or it's just not the year they can make it, or they're not sure they're ready to go yet, or they don't understand how this impacts the open source community.
Right, I was just going to say, they don't understand the value of it, maybe. I don't mean to keep bringing it back about Jupiter Broadcasting, but just to talk in a way that I can directly relate to. The most direct way I can relate to what you're talking about is look at the amount of work that you and I have gotten done. And it's not that we planned a meeting. It's not that we had a retreat. It's not that we went to a leadership conference.
Yeah.
We went out for Mexican.
Yeah.
I mean, we ate tacos.
Yeah.
They were good tacos.
Yeah, they were.
When they weren't curry.
No.
I'm still waiting.
I got it in the fridge for you.
I know. But it's more funny if I say I'm waiting. But look at the amount of work that we've gotten done, and look at the kind of connection, and like you said, the contextual things. It's the things that are beyond the words that allow you to understand, really going on.
And I think it's really kind of one of those things where when you walk away from it, you kind of come away energized about open source and about community, and especially for somebody who maybe like me isn't predominantly a social person. It's a good chance for me to exercise that in a space that is filled with people that like to talk about what I like to talk about.
Right.
And it's really fun to go and have peer-level conversations with people about the Kwin compositor and about the things you can do to make your gaming more performing. Right. That's great. Like, I don't normally get that.
And that brings me to an interesting point. As I'm walking around here, I'm definitely hearing talks and meanderings about people are thinking about the Linux desktop. And they are thinking about the Linux desktop in a way of where is the Linux desktop going and what technologies do we need to be targeting?
Yeah.
And the fact that they're putting that kind of effort and the fact that that seems to be such a forefront conversation, we're not talking about phones.
Yeah.
We're not talking about TVs.
Right.
We're not talking about containers.
Right.
That's all here, of course.
Right.
But the forefront seems to be the Linux desktop.
Yeah.
And when I talk to these developers, they're really focusing on the Linux desktop. And actually, that's a great segue into Nathan Haynes. Nathan, we've met Nathan a couple of times, and Nathan is the leader of the Ubuntu Loco here in Los Angeles. He's also a member of the local community council on Canonical, and that's a really fancy way of saying that he has a really deep ties to the community and really understands what's going on with Canonical and Ubuntu at a very local level. And so he was kind enough to come on the program and talk with a little bit about what Ubuntu is going, and he has, I think, some neat ideas of what they could be doing with snaps.
Yeah.
So Nathan, first of all, thanks so much for taking the time to stop on the Ask Noah show and chat with us a little bit. I see that Ubuntu has had a booth here basically every year for as long as I've been coming to SCaLE. Tell me why SCaLE is so important to Ubuntu.
This is our 11th year at SCaLE, and as the largest Linux and open free software community conference in North America, SCaLE is a place where people can come from all across the US and all across the world just to really celebrate Linux and free software. And so since that's so close to the values that Ubuntu has, is that sense of community, this is the perfect place for us to be and answer questions. And really, especially the first couple of years, most of our time was just coming in and being gracious when people said thank you for Ubuntu.
You talk about how there's a community feel here, how this is a community conference. Tell me the difference between a corporate conference and a community conference.
Corporate conferences are all about business, all about sometimes products, technologies, things they want to sell, why you should use their technology. And we're all here to say it's all great. There's no bad Linux. And, to help people answer the questions so they can make their decisions and get work done.
Sure, so it's not a zero-sum game. There can be more than one winner.
Exactly.
Obviously, this year is a big year for things like Wayland, and obviously with the changes that Canonical has made to their default desktop environment, you talked about how GNOME is here, how KDE is here. Are you getting a lot of questions? Are you getting a lot of concern? Are you getting a lot of excitement for Canonical's decision to switch to the GNOME desktop?
people are looking, saying, "Oh, that doesn't look so different at all." And I said, "No, we've worked really hard to make. We haven't implemented Unity on top of GNOME Shell. We want it to be a GNOME Shell experience, but we want to provide an easy transition. So when someone has 1604 and they do their upgrade in July, it's not surprise new interface. It's really nice that GNOME has changed so that 7 years ago, when we started Unity, GNOME wasn't easy to work with if you didn't have the exact same direction that they had. And nowadays, they still know exactly what they want GNOME Shell to be. Mm-hmm. But we say we want to modify a little bit or make things more flexible. They're like, well, let's work together so we can not change the GNOME experience, but let you customize, let other distros customize.
So you have found, or Ubuntu has found the GNOME team to be very responsive and easy to work with as far as integrating change or getting things patched when you guys find bugs?
When we split, it was kind of the way things had to come. Nowadays, went back, with good hopes and open mind, and they've been incredibly responsive. And I think it's been a really, really good partnership.
Going forward in 2018, where do you see the future of Linux? What do you hope to be talking about in 2019 when we come here and we meet up?
I think it'd be great if there's a Linux subsystem for Windows from Microsoft as a snap that you can install and run Windows programs, and then Wine disappears.
Is this a pipe dream, or is this something that is at least it has some hope of maybe happening?
It just came to me in a vision when you asked that question. But,
okay.
Right. So I'm hoping that as snaps become more popular, as they become easier and easier to use, because snaps make it so easy that you can write a recipe, and every time you hit GitHub, it rebuilds and you're all set.
People want more information, ubuntu.com, and obviously if they're here at SCaLE, come by the Ubuntu booth and check things out.
Absolutely, and with Snap, so 18.4 has a new install mode for the desktop, a minimal install. And so if you're a corporation that didn't want to support everything, or if you knew you wanted to run all your stuff through Snaps, now we have a way to do that. So you're not stuck with just the Ubuntu defaults that always have to stick around. That's the beginning of a process where we're going to make the install just as easy, one click, no problem. Mm-hmm. But if you want to customize things a little bit, you'll be able to start having more flexibility without sacrificing the new user friendliness.
So I think one of the most interesting things that I heard from Nathan, obviously Canonical is doing a really great job all around, and one of the things that I have seen speculated in the community, and I was glad that Nathan put it to rest, was that GNOME is a difficult project to work with. That, there's this idea that anything that Canonical suggests to GNOME, that they're not going to work with it. And he said, that was a problem at one time. That was an issue. And that was one of the reasons that they had to go their own way. And from his perspective, they don't see that as an issue. And I thought that was interesting. The other thing I thought was pretty interesting was his speculation that that you could use the Windows subsystem as a snap. Now, we were out at lunch earlier today, Chris and I were, and we were talking about the direction that Microsoft is going. Because one of the things that Microsoft keeps saying at this conference and every other is that don't just listen to our words, take a look at our actions.
Yeah, that was actually the final slide of one of the keynote presentations today was follow up on us. Check in how we're doing. Actually see what our actions are.
We are changing. Yeah. And the kind of change that we are proposing, the kind of change that we are implementing at Microsoft is change that cannot be rolled back easily. We're going one direction and one direction only.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll be honest with you, and I know it seems like when I talk to other people, the jury is still out, and there's a lot of people that are saying, it's pretty clear to me, there's things like PowerShell, they can't go back and close source that out.
.NET Core.
Yeah, they have taken serious action. And I guess, for me, the jury's just still out. And maybe, I'll be the first one to admit, maybe that's just this emotional thing of being, just burned by a company for so many years to try to see that they've changed their stripes. But as I listened to Nathan talk about how you could actually, potentially, in theory anyway, take the Windows subsystem and turn it into a snap, and then I start listening to him, and this didn't make it the cut into the interview, but he was talking about how some of the people from Microsoft he is building a relationship with here, and that she had stopped over and she had talked to him.
Yeah.
And they were talking about these various things.
Yeah.
And
that's one of the things that's great here.
It is, networking and the conferencing, but when you have ideas like that, if you can take the Ubuntu subsystem and incorporate it into Windows, why couldn't you take the Windows subsystem and incorporate it into Ubuntu?
Yeah, really. And especially if it was a Microsoft project. The thing that you didn't mention at lunch is I was saying to you, I said, well, what the heck would it take, Noah? What would it take for Microsoft to convince you? And I wonder if Microsoft released a Windows subsystem for Linux, so you could run Windows on Linux.
Absolutely.
You open up a terminal and it's Windows, and it's binary compatible with Windows, and you can run Windows applications. And it, unfortunately, but maybe good, it makes the wine. It's so good it makes the wine project 100% irrelevant. You can even run games on this thing. It's so good, and it's completely open source.
Right.
Would that make you change your tune about Microsoft?
It would. If we get to the point where you can run and you can execute PL code on Linux, I would agree that's the final nail that would convince me Microsoft has changed its stripes. And to be honest with you, because I don't want to get too far down in the weeds, the reality is that Microsoft is only going to make decisions that benefit Microsoft, and that's an okay thing. Microsoft is in business to support Microsoft.
Yeah.
And I understand that, and I accept that, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I guess what I am looking to see is, before I am going to go around and tout Microsoft as, like I've heard people say this, the biggest contributor to open source in 2018. The biggest contributor
I think
to
it was
open
2016.
source in 2017.
Because
Whatever it is.
it was Hyper-V patches.
Yeah. Before I'm going to be willing to go around and give them a pat on the back and say, I want them to have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
And so if that happens, it happens. If not, but again, it goes back to this, what you were talking about earlier, that fourth dimensional connection between humans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of stuff that you get here at a conference. That's not the kind of stuff that you can get even on a mailing list.
Yeah.
1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624. The email, live@AskNoahShow.com. Make your voice heard. Become a part of the program. Chris is calling from West Virginia. Hey, Chris. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah. How you doing?
Pretty good. So, you and I have had an ongoing discussion in the Telegram group. And last week I had talked about SimpleHelp and what a great tool and resource it is and all of the benefits. And I said if I could only have one or two tools, it would probably come down to SeaFile and SimpleHelp. And a couple people went to SimpleHelp's website, simplehelp.com, simple-help.com, and they misunderstood. They said, "Hey,
it's not open source, Noah."
Well, if one, it's not open source, and the other thing
what are you doing to us here?
And the other thing that they said was, you can't self-host it. It's you have to, and
that's you're the self-hosted guy.
Well,
you're the open source Linux self-hosted guy. What are you doing?
Right, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's only available as a self-host service. They don't even offer a hosted version that I'm aware of. So yes, when you go to simplehelp.com and you click on pricing, they give pricing, and it's a standard business and enterprise. But here's what you have to understand. You have to understand that when they say a single license is $300, that means that for the rest of your life, you can use the binary that they gave you for $300. Now, after 1 year is up, you can renew that service for $240, and then you'll get the latest binary and continue to get the latest binary.
Okay. This is enterprise grade stuff here.
It is, and it's not just for remotely controlling the desktop. It's for doing a bunch of management stuff.
I mean, are you advocating that people replace like TeamViewer if they're just doing one or two machines?
One or two machines. That's see, the problem is that pricing for TeamViewer is almost $1,000.
Yeah, if you pay for it. Otherwise, you live with the negs. If you use it so rarely, the negs aren't so bad.
If you use it so rarely, it doesn't matter. I'd say if you start accessing a machine 2 or 3 times a day, eventually TeamViewer will shut you down. Not just nag you, shut you down. And
I
that's
didn't know
what happened
that.
to me. Right. Well, the interesting thing about SimpleHelp, and this is kind of why I asked Chris to call in if he had some time. Chris Lucas joins us from West Virginia. Is that the SimpleHelp licensing scheme will allow you to, if you buy, let's say you buy the business version, and the business version is $450 per active session, so per remote connection at a simultaneous time.
So I could have 10,000 PCs I could potentially connect to, but I can only be connected to one at a time.
Exactly. And 10,000 and 50,000 potential people enrolled in your system that can also connect to those 10,000 PCs.
Right.
$450, one simultaneous connection. Now, if you buy more than one simultaneous connection, the price goes down. So you buy 2, it's $360. You buy 3, it drops a little bit more. The fantastic thing about SimpleHelp, and why I really commend them, I spent the $450. Then I said I want to add a second license. They give it to you at that $360 for both of them. So now I'm paying $300 and whatever it would be, $30.
And this isn't an ad. This is not a sponsorship.
An ad, no.
They don't sponsor.
But why I brought Chris on? I'm sorry, Chris. Thank you for being patient, for waiting for me. But the way that the self-hosted service works is inside of what we call the agent, and that is the piece of program that runs in the background to allow you to connect. You can specify which servers it is registering to. And then those servers ultimately determine the access controls of who can access that machine. But what Chris and I have done is Chris owns an IT consulting company out of West Virginia, and he has some expertise that I don't have, and I have some expertise that he doesn't have. And so the clients that we each have, where both of us are doing a little bit work for the other one, we have simultaneously enrolled those clients in both of our SimpleHelp servers. And so, Chris, I was wondering if you could touch on your experience. Basically, is it worth the $450?
Well, first of all, I'm in geek heaven because I have been listening to Christopher for 10 years and never talked to him directly. So I sideline you and say, "Hi, Chris."
Hey, thanks.
I'm sorry.
Thanks. Hi, Chris.
I'm sorry. I should have made an introduction. Chris, meet Chris. Hey, Chris.
Nice
meet
name.
Chris.
I like your name.
Hey, you too. I'm sorry. No, what was your question? I didn't hear you.
He's starstruck. We have a starstruck. No, basically, you were following the conversation probably closer than I was in Telegram, but there were some people that were really upset with me.
It's not worth $400, is what people think. It's not worth almost $500.
Well, there was one guy. He literally said.
Well,
He literally said, I looked, I am not paying $300 every time I want to connect to my computer.
Oh.
Well, now that's a really confusing way to put it. $300 per session almost sounds like every time I double click on something, it's going to charge me $300.
Yeah, that's kind of the wrong way to put it.
That's not the way it works.
Well, you left a couple of things out there, Noah. For that one seat, one control, you could still have, like Chris said, 1,000 machines. You could have 1,000 technicians also.
Right.
But only one connection at a time.
Right, one simultaneous
Something
connection.
they're doing now that I don't think they did before is they're offering bundles now. I didn't even notice that. But
right.
Yes, I'm sorry. I did it again. I was listening to both of you, and I missed your entire question.
Well, no, I guess here's basically what I was getting at. What I was getting at is that SimpleHelp is a great choice for managed service providers, for people that are doing this as a profession. Now, if you're running a personal machine and you have that one machine that you connect to once a month, probably not worth the overhead of setting up a dedicated server. I guess that's what I was getting at. And I guess what I wanted your input on was you had explained it in a very graceful way in the Telegram chat of where the ideal SimpleHelp user is and why their price is reasonable.
I believe I said something to the effect of if you're just managing, 4 or 5 machines, it's not really worth it to you. But I put it on every one of my family members' machines, and it doesn't matter where they are in the world. If they can see my server, if they can connect to the internet and see my server, I can help them no matter what. I open my technician console, I see their machine, I double click it, boom, I've got control.
And how has your experience been with firewalls?
I don't think I've had an issue with firewalls. I've actually helped. I actually helped a couple of people in the Ask Noah channel. They were having issues with something, and we broke off into our own little chat. And I said, "Well, here, go to this page, download this client." Boom, there they are. They're on my terminal or on my technician panel. I double click. I've got control of their machine. Now we're chatting. Now I see what they see.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of little features that I didn't go into, and you're breezing by them. But I have the ability to pop a message up on a user's machine that's enrolled, right?
Yes,
and so even
that is nice. Hey, I'm going to be rebooting systems tonight.
Exactly.
Save all your work before you leave.
Exactly, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And sending them to multiple machines. When you open up, obviously the chat thing, that's pretty typical of any remote desktop software. But the ability to install programs in the background, the ability to manage services, to create the desktops on the shortcut and stuff like that. As I was talking about it over at lunch, because this conversation came up again and again, it's one of those things where I don't have enough good things to say about it, and I actually was toying around whether to say this on the air or not, and I basically decided I'm going to. But I heard from a user, this is not an official policy. However, I had one user that telegrammed me and said, I contacted SimpleHelp and said that $300 is an unreasonable price for what I'm trying to do. I just have this home computer. and they just gave them a license and said, if you're just using it for home, you're not making money off of it, we want to help you out. We're actually looking at rolling out a free version.
That would be great.
So if there's somebody out there and you're just, and please don't take advantage of these guys, because
just let them know you want it.
Yeah, they're making a great product. But so please don't, if you actually plan on using it for business, please be honest and square up with them. But if you are, in fact, only connecting to one machine at a time or two machines at a time or whatever as a personal thing, go ahead and give them a call or go ahead and tweet them, and you can take a look and see what they offer. And if they ever did release a free version, man, we're going to do... I mean, I know it's stupid. It was just the second week in a row I'm talking about it, but I'm going to do a third episode all about SimpleHelp.
Really?
Yeah, as we convert your studio to SimpleHelp.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we are. I actually am all about that.
Yeah. And you know what's great is, so for example, the Obscaster machine is actually already enrolled in SimpleHelp. And so the nice thing is, like, you set your SimpleHelp server up, you can just add your server to that list, and now all of a sudden you have access to it. And let's say your server ever goes down or something happens, you can say, hey, Noah, can I get a log onto yours? And then you can still access that machine.
What's the screen latency like if I'm over a slow connection?
Actually, it's really interesting. So you can choose how you want that. So
you're using it right here, right now?
I am, yeah. That's
over a Wi-Fi connection.
That's actually how we're on the air while I'm streaming. But I can go up over here into the settings panel, and I can actually
dial it up or down.
I can actually tell it, I want to run at this particular resolution. I want to grab this screen this many times. All of those things.
Oh, that's nice.
All of those things can be exactly dialed in, and
the app looks like it works pretty good on the Plasma desktop too. Like it's working.
It's actually worked a lot better on Plasma than it ever did on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
It looks like it works good. Okay, you are selling me on SimpleHelp.
Yeah, the best thing I can do to sell it to you is try it. And the nice thing is SimpleHelp does offer a trial. So anyone that's out there that is questioning what I'm saying is it really worth it? Only you can answer that.
I think that's why TeamViewer owns the market for personal remote.
Oh, absolutely.
Is because of that free,
You know, and it's funny because TeamViewer shot themselves in the foot. After using TeamViewer for so many years, I wasn't even considering something else.
Yeah.
And
I just recently went back because they released an official Linux version.
Let me tell you something about the Linux version.
Yeah.
Every time TeamViewer updates, you get 2 update cycles before you have to install the next version.
Oh, no.
Now, there is a limit to which versions of Ubuntu will run the latest version of TeamViewer. Fourth week of this program, I had a call from a user, and we talked about this very thing. If you have a 1204 machine or a 1404 machine, and if both the computer that you're connecting to and the computer that you're using get out of sync even just a little bit by 2 versions, you can no longer connect, and it'll give you a message and say, tell your partner to upgrade his version.
That's no good. And I probably just have never hit that because right now everything's just recently been loaded to Neon.
Right. Yeah, and if you can keep everything in the same... If you can keep everything in the same version, then you're fine. But I have gotten bit by that a couple of times.
Friends and family machines that are further out of my control, that's not so easy to guarantee.
Great thing about SimpleHelp, again, they have an instant support page. So you click on that thing, it just has a little run file, and then you can connect to their program.
Oh, so you don't even have to pre-install it. You just say, get this file, run it. Okay.
Anyway, I don't mean to turn the whole program into a SimpleHelp thing. I get it. Either you like it or you don't. And it's not open source, so it's not perfect. But I just wanted to clarify some of that stuff because I think that if there are people out there that are looking for a really solid remote connection and they don't want to get the rug pulled out from under them like I did with another product that I had previously recommended and I no longer recommend, give SimpleHelp a check. It's simple-help.com.
And yes, just to answer the question, you are aware of Guacamole Remote.
Right.
Yes.
That came in. Yes.
You are
I've
aware of that.
I've heard of it tangentially anyway.
Yeah.
I've also heard of VNC.
Yeah.
XRDP.
You've heard of that.
X2Go.
So, yes, just so everybody knows. I've noticed that. I've noticed people have asked you that. Yes, he does know about them. Yeah, we've talked about them.
1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Ben is calling from Kentucky. Hey, Ben, I do want to remind you, Ben, that
Oh, hey there, Ben.
I just want to remind you, we got to keep the language clean because we are on the radio, okay?
Ben's having a tough time.
That.
He's having a tough time.
No, it's okay. So for those of you that, I don't know, do you want to introduce your problem or do you not want to go through it again? It's probably kind of frustrating. Maybe I should just catch everyone up.
Oh, Lord. It's okay. I can reiterate what we talked about a week ago. It's okay. So I'll actually let you introduce it because I know you know what I'm going about.
Yeah, so Ben has a MacBook, and he's had a really terrible time. He's trying to get Linux running, and he's doing everything he can to get Linux running.
I actually managed to do it, Noah.
Oh, you got Linux to work? Oh, really? This is a success story?
Installed.
Wonderful. So, all right. All right.
This might not be as entertaining as I was expecting.
TV real quick.
All right, let's walk through this a little bit, Ben.
I like Ben. Ben calls into a radio show and has the TV going.
Yeah. Well, so Ben, I guess
let me
here's what
pause it. Well, actually,
do that.
what happened was, I got Antergos on it with KDE, and I found that it's scaling, et cetera.
Good.
Okay, so you're a Plasma user then.
There are some quirks, though, I will say. There are some quirks that I've found. Only the NVIDIA graphics are working, which is kind of a pain in the neck. And then the webcam doesn't work, weirdly enough.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of a killer. So yeah,
and Ben, I just want to stop you for 1 second. I just want to tell you, I don't actually know that there is a solution to the webcam thing.
Oh, there is a long and drawn-out process that involves extracting firmware blobs from Mac OS if you have the right version of a MacBook. It would be a better use of your time to just get a USB webcam.
Yeah,
it really, because I took a hot minute to try it, and I got about 10 minutes really into it. And I thought this is just not worth it. I don't use the iSight camera that much, and it's kind of a crappy camera to begin with. The NVIDIA thing is fixable.
Oh, okay.
That's a boot time option flag you can set depending on what bootloader you're using. The downside is you will have to make a choice of boot time between Intel or NVIDIA.
Sure.
But you pick one at boot time.
So I guess, Ben, my first question is, how often do you actually use the webcam?
I don't have to use the webcam. That's not a big deal. But I do want to get switchable graphics working if I can manage to do that.
Okay. And is doing that at boot time a problem for you? Is that an acceptable solution?
I can give it a try. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I agree, because I had the same situation. But it is manageable. And if you check the Arch Wiki, there's some pretty clear instructions on how to do it.
Okay. So we'll have that link for you.
I can give that a shot. That's not that hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'll take a look into that. And that shouldn't be too difficult, because I've messed with the bootloader parameters before, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Okay, well, that's fantastic, and thank you very much.
Then you're a warrior.
Yeah, we really appreciate you not only calling in to ask, because everyone that calls in to ask a question is supporting the show. It's the most value. People always ask me, say, how can you support the show? Well, that's really the best thing you can do to support the show, and we really appreciate it. But the second best thing you can do is call back in when you get something right or when something is fixed. Call back in and let us know, because there's some other MacBook user out there that's having an issue, and he can benefit from learning from others.
There's a fair amount of MacBooks here at the floor of SCaLE, and the conversation has come up at least 2 or 3 times about running Linux on them.
Really?
So it's not like everybody's doing it, but there's enough people now that have the hardware, and they've gotten over the new shiny, and I think they're ready to kind of try having some fun with it. And so it comes up, and
it's really nice to have a usable operating system too.
Oh, and the conversation usually goes along the lines of how old is it. If it's about 4 or 5 years old, you're going to be pretty solid. If it's touch bar, you're pretty stuck right now. It's not very easy.
Yeah. So I guess just thanks for calling in. We really appreciate that. Now it's interesting because you talk about we have seen disproportionate number of MacBooks and a lot of Windows boxes
and a good amount of Lenovo's.
Amount of Lenovo's, but I've also seen a lot of Linux here. And what's interesting is as we walk around the floor and we talk to some of the projects and the people that are not only just presenting, but the people that are out on the expo show floor, I'm finding people that have made Linux usable for me on the desktop. And one of those people is one of the co-founders of Inkscape. And the thing about Ted Gould is, that he cares about Linux, and he cares about Linux on the desktop.
He's a Linux user.
He is a Linux user, and even though he's not an artist, he's managed to make a very highly professional graphics tool that I swear by. And anyone that's around me for any length of time, we're looking at redoing our logo for Altispeed Technologies.
Aww.
I know. Well, we're going to try and keep some of the
original.
How shall I say?
Original inspirations.
Historical legacy.
Okay, good. I like that.
But as we did that, as I'm talking to graphic designers, one of the things I absolutely insist is that they provide me with an SVG. And the reason is because I want to create all of my graphic design stuff inside of Inkscape. And so I was walking around the floor and I ran into Mr. Gould, and he talked to us about Inkscape and what they're up to. Walking around the floor at SCaLE, we came to the Inkscape booth, and I had to stop in and say hello. I have to tell you, I am a huge fan of Inkscape. In fact, I never miss an opportunity to tell somebody they should be using Inkscape for something. And if we design our graphics, at the very least, I insist that any graphics that come through our shop have to be processed in SVG so I can use Inkscape, even if they didn't.
And that for you, that's liberating, right? Because you can make adjustments, you can start to bring things together. And I think that's what is a lot of the power of open formats and open source. It's not necessarily that you would do all the graphics yourself. You may not be a designer, I don't know, but you can hire a designer and then you could take it and you can start to build on it. And that's the beauty of open graphics and free graphics, is that it empowers users.
So one of the things that I've noticed right off the bat with Inkscape is it is an insanely powerful program, and that can be overwhelming to people sometimes. Sometimes people they'll sit down at Inkscape and they'll say there are a lot of buttons, but honestly, once you get under the hood, it's actually pretty simple to pick up.
Well, we try our best to try to keep it available for everyone. You want to be able to build and start with a new project, but you also want to be able to do everything that's possible. We've got artists that do photorealistic renderings that are just unbelievable. I mean, I don't even really know how it's not a photo, but these people just generate it. But for me, mostly I'm a developer, and so I do diagrams, I do boxes, I do lines, and Inkscape works well for those too. But yeah, it can be intimidating. We've tried to provide as many resources. There's good Inkscape books online that are free, and there's also ones you can buy at the No Starch booth if you're interested. But there's a lot of resources available, and we hope to do more of that. We're really focused on getting more resources out there. There's also a lot of good video tutorials on YouTube if you're interested in that and learning more about how to just really get involved in Inkscape.
So I'm starting out on Inkscape. I'm a new user. I've never really used a graphic design program. I know that I want to get started, and I maybe I don't have the patience to read a book, or maybe I don't have the patience to watch a video. Talk to me about what a scalable vector graphic is and why that's beneficial.
So in general, vector graphics means that you're keeping the entire schematic of how you built the image. And so if you want to use it for one format, we talk a lot about like, hey, I want to be on a phone screen, or I want to be on a billboard. Well, if you keep a vector graphic, you keep the actual schematic that goes and does those different outputs. And so you don't lose that. If you do it in a bitmap editor, or you take a photo, that's one size, that's one capture. But the vector graphics allow you to be more flexible and go back and edit the individual components later.
So if I start out and I'm freestyling it, and I make a 200 by 200 pixel image, and it's a line. You're telling me I can blow that picture up to the side of the New York State, Empire State Building, and print it off, and I won't lose a bit of quality?
You can laser print it on the moon.
That's a good answer. I like that. I'm going to have to steal that. So let's say I don't know how to draw objects myself. Is there a place I can go to download pre-made SVGs?
Yes, there's the Open Clip Art Library. The Open Clip Art Library is public domain SVGs, and I don't remember how many images are there. It's like 90,000 or something like that. There's just a huge amount of SVG, and it's all public domain. So that means you could take it and start to modify it. Mm-hmm. For instance, over here, I've got a knot board that I made for my Cub Scout troop pack, and so I took a bunch of Open Clip Art stuff of knots and of diagrams, and I put all those together, and I created something that was new, and we laser cut it, and we gave it to a bunch of little Cub Scouts, and they practiced their knots with them. So that was based on knot designs that other people had published. I didn't do it all myself. I'm not an artist. I couldn't have done it myself. But Open Clip Art empowered me to be able to make that design.
One of the things you started with is you said, isn't it nice to have Libre software, open source software? How about your operating system choice? Are you a Mac guy, Windows guy, Linux guy?
So I'm a Linux guy. I mean, that's what I do. Inkscape actually is available for Windows and Mac as well. And I think most of our downloads actually come from Windows. So a lot of people we're using Inkscape on Windows. We find a lot of our developers who know about open source and learn about open source come from the open source communities around operating systems as well. There's fewer bugs on the open source operating system, so if you've got a choice, I'd recommend choosing that. But we definitely do support Windows and Mac OS as well.
So I'm a diehard Linux on the desktop guy. That's just me, And so I guess as I started to look for professional grade tools, when I came across Inkscape, that was really exciting to me. And any project, or when I meet somebody like yourself and you're a developer and you say, I have a passion for open source, I have a passion for Libre software, and I am using Linux on the desktop, you have great insight into what the Linux desktop is doing, what the ecosystem is doing, and you're making your changes in your software. Like you said, there's less bugs in the open source version because that's what you're using, and so that's where people are going to have the best experience. 2018 seems like it's going to be a big year for Linux. Where do you think Linux is going, and where does Inkscape plan to be?
I think that we've got a lot of transitions happening in the way computing works right now. Whether we see more tablets and phones and how that happens. I mean, as far as we look at Linux won. I mean, Linux is Android, and so the reality is Linux is already everywhere. The question is, how do we handle that with some of the traditional Linux applications that we've got? Inkscape, LibreOffice, does that run on Android? I don't really know what that answer is. Chrome OS is also talking about running Linux applications directly, and that'll change things a lot. So I think we're in a real state of transition that we don't really know. For Inkscape, I mean, right now we're focused on switching to GTK3 because GTK3 gives us the pluggable backends, so we can start to do Wayland and other things. So, for instance, our high DPI support isn't very good right now. But if you run the GTK3 branch, like go through a PPA or a snap, you can get that version, and it works great on high DPA, a high DPI. And so I think there's a lot of exciting things going there. We don't really know what the long-term trajectory is, and we'll see what happens on the desktop, or whether there's a desktop at all.
Yeah, well, don't say that now. But so we talk a lot about display servers, and there's a lot of people that are really scared by it, and there's a lot of people that are really excited by it. Sounds like Inkscape is pretty well positioned itself to be as competitive on Wayland as it was on Xorg.
I think actually Waylands are a huge gain for us. If you do large Inkscape images, and that's not really me, but when I see other artists do it, they've got filters and gradients, and it's just hitting there. It slows down a lot. I mean, it really is a problem. And the fact is that Wayland requires more from the graphics card and graphics drivers than X did. And so if you can run Wayland, we already know you're halfway there. We can start to use the Cairo GL backend, which we couldn't use before, and distros weren't enabling it because they didn't really know whether the hardware has it. But when we start to go to a Wayland world, we can start assuming those things. And so once we start being able to assume a certain graphics capability, we can start really using it to empower graphics on everything, to Inkscape, to LibreOffice can have cool GL effects a lot more. And so I'm excited from Wayland, from not necessarily the Wayland itself, but what Wayland shows as a transition for what we can expect.
That's fantastic. I'm really excited to see what you guys are doing. And just because you kind of brought it up, I guess I want to just dig into it a little bit. How about the integration? If I create something in Inkscape, how is that beneficial when I'm going to create like a flyer in LibreOffice that I'm going to print out, or a presentation in Impress?
Well, I think that's not necessarily a integration between those applications. It's about using open standards, and Open Document is a standard, SVG is a standard. I think that's actually one thing that's really empowered Inkscape development, is we didn't argue about file formats. There's nothing to argue about, because it's SVG. It's decided by W3C. We don't really have a choice, and so we had to work within those restrictions. And so in ways that empowered us to be able to say, okay, how do I think about this problem in a different way? And so by supporting those open standards, LibreOffice does a great job of supporting SVG now. And so, like, for a presentation I gave today, I did most of my graphics in Inkscape, but then I actually presented them in LibreOffice, and I just open, import, and it's there. It's not a big deal. And so I think it's a bigger thing about being able to support open standards and helping people work on those open standards. We do a lot of work like at LGM and graphics things about getting developers together to understand the standards better. And I think that's all moves to the point where you get the integrations for free, effectively, by supporting good standards.
Well, I'm really excited for what you guys are doing, and I'm incredibly grateful for the product that you put forward, and I think it's a very professional level product that I don't have enough good things to say about. If people wanted to find more about Inkscape, where would they go?
Inkscape.org is the website. There's a ton of information there, and we've got links to all the tutorials, books, everything you could go to. You're also welcome to hang out. We've got mailing lists. Our forums are down right now. We're getting the forums back, but the forums will be back soon. And you're welcome to come out and meet us at SCaLE or other events we're at.
So I really enjoyed talking with Mr. Gould, and the thing is, he's a true nerd, and he cares about his project, and you could tell that every answer he gave me was a passionate answer, right? And so I was really thankful for that. Again, open phones, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624. Of course, the email, live@asknoahshow.com. Make your voice heard, become a part of the program. Corey calls us. Hey, Corey, how's it going?
Good, Noah. I'm thinking about doing this for the entire household in my company, and set up a Nextcloud server.
Ooh, good choice.
Yeah, and the only two people that I knew of whoever's done this is you and Chris. So
I think
to call in.
I think there's a couple more people that have set it up than just me and Chris. But
Yeah, I don't know.
anyway, I'm sorry. What was your question? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's fine. But I'm actually thinking about buying me a little server, a NAS server,
Oh, okay.
or would y'all recommend just going to put it in Dropbox? My company is expecting to buy the business account for Dropbox since everybody is a Windows user or a Mac user.
Okay, let me ask you this. What are you thinking of using Dropbox? Or I'm sorry. What are you thinking of using Nextcloud for?
To get all the photos and everything that I need from the funeral homes and this bar that
Okay,
I'm now.
so what I'm hearing, Corey, is that you're interested primarily in file syncing.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing too.
Because you don't want to use. I would not use Nextcloud for file syncing, and here's why. I've done that. It doesn't work very well. And that's not a hit on Nextcloud. If you have a couple of resource files, you have a couple text documents, maybe you got a small photo library, something like that.
Sync is part of what you need, not exclusively what you need.
Right.
Sync is part of it.
I think in those instances, I think Nextcloud fits very well. I think when you start to look at, I want a data management solution, and I want my data to be everywhere, and I want it to sync everywhere.
Yeah.
I think in those instances, Nextcloud is not the best solution for that.
Yeah.
Now, absolutely, if you want to pay for a service, you could go with Dropbox. However, I would encourage you to take a look at SCaLE. SCaLE is open source, it's encrypted, and you can host it yourself. So you can start out by just repurposing an OPC. You can go over to DigitalOcean and rent a droplet. If you what's one of the codes that they can use for free?
Here's the thing.
Here's the thing. If you use the here's the thing, then you can get some money off of the droplet. They give you a $10 credit and get and that I would actually just run it on a $5 droplet.
I would also, Corey, make sure you are prepared to manage the data, because now you will be responsible for this data. And so you're going to want to think about things like drive redundancy. You're going to want to think about how you're going to back up that data out of the sync, because just syncing it around isn't a backup. You need to have a second copy stored somewhere outside of that sync, so that way if a file gets wrecked, somebody enters the wrong fields into a spreadsheet, that's just going to sync everywhere. You may need a backup.
It's actually, I've seen it happen even worse, Chris. I've seen where they have had a file synchronization tool installed, and we're Linux. We can't be affected by viruses. We're Linux. We're immune. We're Linux, right? And then somebody takes a Windows box, installs the sync software, gets CryptoLock or whatever it is.
Oh, no.
And all of a sudden, all those Linux boxes are host.
Oh, wow.
So you have to think about it from that perspective.
You're going to be managing data now.
You're going to be managing
and
data.
responsible.
You're
for
in that business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Corey, you said you were doing it for a funeral home, so I'm assuming here that you are probably making some money off of doing that. And if that's the case, I would roll those costs either to pay somebody to update that sucker once a week, or if you're going to do it, make sure to incorporate those costs. Make sure to look at the cost of your server. So obviously, if you use a technical savvy place like DigitalOcean, you can probably get that cost down a little bit. But
you won't say it, but what if he wanted to go through somebody like Altispeed to have them manage it?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So the next thing is you could
go with a managed service.
Go with a managed service, or rent a server,
which Dropbox kind of is. I mean, that's essentially what you're doing.
Yep. The issue I have with Dropbox is that all of their employees have the private key to the data of their customers.
And it's part of how they do the dedupe process, too.
Right.
Yeah, that's a problem, and that could have HIPAA implications, possibly. Plus, it's extremely expensive. Now, Dropbox does have a service to meet HIPAA compliance, but it's kind of backwards on how you do it. Like, you got to sign stuff and mail it off to them, and it's a process to get HIPAA compliance with Dropbox.
So,
there's that aspect to it. But
and I'm not trying to make this into an Altispeed sales ad, but one of the things that we do, and I think we do it really well, is we provide SCaLE as a service. So we've taken the SCaLE client, now we've branded it up, and we put a lot of marketing lingo in there to make it appealing to people that don't care.
You call it AltiSync? What do you call it?
I think we call it FileSync Pro or something like that. FileSync Pro, or something like. There's some goofy name, right?
I would call it NoahSync.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah, that'd be good.
But the NoahSync, and if you have questions, ask Noah.
Yeah.
So we branded up a little bit, but you look at the underpinnings, it's actually just SCaLE underneath. And our clients have been extraordinarily happy with it. We've had a couple people from the show. In fact, a couple of episodes I gave out 5 free SCaLE installations, and we set it up for those people. And Corey, if you're still on the line, I'm going to go ahead and put you back on hold. I'll have Sarah pick up. We'll take your information, and we're going to give you a free 90-day subscription to our hosted SCaLE server, so you can kind of check it out and see how it works, see if that fits your needs. Now, if you like it, you can go ahead and just continue to pay for the service and keep it forever, or you can go and self-host that sucker. And like I said, set it up on a spare box.
Yeah, right? Now you know how it works. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it.
Again, phone lines 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email live@asknoahshow.com. As we wind down the program here at SCaLE, we'll give you a look at what's coming up the rest of the week. So tomorrow I'm going to be here and might have a chance to chat with some of the Red Hat folks. I know they wanted to talk. We also have a guest, a listener of the show, actually had called in with a question. I had a chance to meet him. He is a chef expert.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of people write into the show, and they have asked, they've said, Noah, I want to know how to do managed infrastructure where we can automate that stuff, script those things.
Yes.
So we're going to bring him on, and he's going to explain to you how you can get Chef set up to work and how you can manage all of your systems with Chef. Which
cool.
Is, yeah.
Even if you have a few systems, just a couple, that could be really neat.
Yeah, even just to play with it.
Yeah.
Right. So he's coming up on the show. Thank you very much to all of the people that helped me reach out to the Vilar folks over at the BBC. I've now gotten in contact with them.
Oh, cool.
And we are discussing bringing them onto the program. They have some concerns about what they want, what they're allowed to disclose publicly. And basically what I said to them is, I just want to hear it from you guys. I'll even tell you what I was able to find publicly, and you can just parrot that back if you want. I just think it's such a cool thing and such a cool effort, and it's all being done on Linux.
Yeah.
And it's such a cutting-edge thing that literally no other operating system is capable of doing.
This is what you talked about last week, right?
Right, yeah, a little bit. We talked about encoding audio packets over IP and stuff like that, and you and I talked about it extensively
all the time,
at lunch. Right, yeah.
It's a really cool project, and the BBC's doing it, which is so neat.
Right.
And it's all Linux.
So those guys are coming up. Also, I know that the audience here kind of tends to cross over a little bit with the independent audience and the freedom-seeking audience. And so I don't want to give away too much because it's not quite in the bag yet. But I have reached out to another gentleman that I think is going to be a fantastic interview on the show. And so we will hopefully be able to schedule him here as well. But I think for sure you can expect to hear from Red Hat. We didn't have time to air it today, but we also have an interview from the folks at VLC.
Oh, yeah.
So that will be coming up, and they're doing some really cool things. They also partnered with Katie Kubuntu to be the default player.
Yeah.
The default media
for
player.
1804.
Which is interesting because, and I'm a bit removed because I'm on Neon, so I don't have any default media player. I have whatever I decided
I've been
to
using
install. Dragon
Player, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
What's Dragon? Is that different from MPV?
It's like MPV, but with a cute wrapper, and it supports file resuming, so it remembers where you left off in all your videos by default. So it's nice. It's got a good full screen mode. I like it. It's fast. Launches really fast.
You know, the other thing is, and we have this fixed now, we had an issue with our website last week, and so asknoahshow.com/elimination for our distro elimination challenge wasn't quite working. I'm really sorry. We got it fixed now.
Okay.
I find somebody, I would like to throw somebody under the bus, but literally the guy that's working on it is like, because it was my fault. And he's like, don't you dare throw me under the bus. And I'm like, I will own it. So it was my fault, but it's fixed now, I'm told, so it should be good. So go over there, check that out, and make sure to vote.
There's a vote going on right now?
There is. I believe...
I don't
want to say because I don't remember. But yeah, go check it out and you can make your vote. NixOS versus something. I know that was one of them.
Okay.
So if you have an opinion on an operating system, which one you'd choose, and we're getting down to the bottom of the first round, so we're about to enter the second round of distro elimination. And I had a chance to speak with the System 76 folks about Pop! OS.
Yeah.
And so we'll have some of that coming up.
Yeah. I did a little coverage of their talk on Tech Talk Today, techtalk.today, to check that out.
So talk to me about. I know we had you on the on the program to talk a little bit. How's that going?
I've really been having a lot of fun. I think I've done 3 or 4 episodes, maybe 3 episodes from the road, and I got the first and second day of SCaLE published. The first day, System 76 gave a really strong talk about their position on the whole Pop! OS thing. So
this program's an hour long, and we've covered 2 interviews, and you and I are chatting back and forth. But if you want very concise coverage, if you just want to get almost like you walk into a restaurant and you get the appetizer, that is, really feels
like the top story of the day from SCaLE for the last couple episodes. Yep, techtalk.today.
And that's going to continue on for another 5 episodes, 4 episodes, 5 episodes?
We're getting close to the end of the first season.
Excellent. So people want that to continue, they better
let me know.
Yeah, they better let you know. Hey guys, did you know this show is available as a downloadable podcast? That's right. To subscribe to the feed or download the latest episode, visit podcast.asknoahshow.com. While you're on the Ask Noah dashboard, help us improve the show. If you have an idea on how you can make this show better, we'd love to hear from you. Head over to asknoahshow.com/better and let us know how we can make this show better. Join the ongoing Telegram discussion, telegram.asknoahshow.com. And of course, you can get the latest information by following us on Twitter at Ask Noah Show. The Ask Noah Show continues next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central. Huge thanks to Vox Telsus for providing our phone systems, Ben, our producer, and Sarah, our call screener, and Rakai, our video editor. We'll hand you off to I don't know what's coming up next on KEQQ 88.3 FM, Grand Forks.